In August 1945, while approximately 210,000 people died in the blast at Hiroshima and Nagasaki, hundreds of thousands of others managed to survive the devastation of history's first atomic bombs. The American bombings of these two Japanese cities unleashed previously unknown horrors upon the world, flattening buildings, incinerating civilians, and leaving survivors with gruesome injuries. Though the apocalyptic terrors of the bombings took place 3 days apart, in cities separated by more than 200 miles, there were dozens of people who actually survived both bombings, including a man named Tsutomu Yamaguchi. Though the Japanese government recognizes some 650,000 people as hibakusha, or people directly affected by the atomic bombings, people like Yamaguchi are recognized as nijo hibakusha, or double survivors, while Tsutomu Yamaguchi alone is the only person recognized as having survived both blasts, after actually being at ground zero for each. On August 6, 1945, the day that the United States dropped the world's first atomic bomb in Hiroshima, Yamaguchi was in the city for work. 3 days later, on August 9th, he was home in Nagasaki, just in time to experience that bombing as well. On the day of the first bombing, Yamaguchi was in Hiroshima for a business trip that had lasted several months, and he was wrapping things up and preparing to return home to his wife and young son. At the time, Yamaguchi had no way of knowing that the course of the war between the US and Japan had just shifted dramatically. Japan refused to accept the terms of surrender put forward in the Potsdam Declaration on July 26th. That same day, the components of Little Boy, the bomb that would soon be dropped on Hiroshima, arrived on the Pacific island of Tinian for final assembly. The Americans hoped that a powerful strike could end World War II in the Pacific theater, just 3 months after it had ended in Europe with the surrender of Nazi Germany that May. To Tsutomu Yamaguchi, however, August 6 was just a normal day. Early on that clear summer morning, he was heading to the train station in order to leave Hiroshima and return to Nagasaki when he realized he'd forgotten his ID stamp back at the office. As he was walking back to get it, he noticed an airplane in the sky. What he didn't know was that it was an American B-29 bomber called the Enola Gay, and it was carrying the atomic bomb. At 8:16 a.m., just after Yamaguchi had noticed that the plane dropped something connected to a parachute, the thing exploded with the force of roughly 16 kilotons of TNT. The blast from the bomb traveled at 984 miles per hour, killing tens of thousands of people and destroying more than 2/3 of the city's structures almost instantly as temperatures on the ground soared to 7,000 degrees Fahrenheit. For Tsutomu Yamaguchi, the world turned blazing white and then went black. The horrors mounted as he tried to make his way through the death and destruction of the ruined city to return home to Nagasaki, only to experience an atomic bombing for a second time. Though he stayed quiet about his experiences during the atomic bombings for most of his life, Yamaguchi finally began discussing it in the early 2000s. As he once remarked, "Having experienced atomic bombings twice and survived, it is my destiny to talk about it." This is his story. You're listening to History Uncovered, brought to you by the digital publisher All That's Interesting, where we explore the uncharted corners of the natural world and the world past. I'm All That's Interesting staff writer Kalina Fraga.
And I'm All That's Interesting staff writer Austin Harvey.
Today, we're discussing the incredible story of Tsutomu Yamaguchi, the man who was at ground zero of both atomic bombings and survived. One thing that I learned, I kind of had vaguely known about him before this, and I learned that there were like dozens of other people who were in both cities, which is sort of incredible. I guess it makes sense. If you're in Hiroshima and the city's bombed, you're going to want to leave.
Right. Yeah.
And for some people, maybe Nagasaki, even though it's far away, I think it's like 200 miles away.
Maybe that was the idea, was like get as far away.
Yeah, exactly. But he was within like 2 miles to both bombs. So That's why I think he has this special designation. In any case, Tsutomu Yamaguchi was born in Nagasaki, Japan on March 16th, 1916. And in the 1930s, he started designing oil tankers for Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, which is important because that's the reason why he was in Hiroshima, was to work in their office there. He wasn't a fan of the war from the beginning, and kind of watching all of Japan's resources being like thrown into the conflict, he found very depressing. In particular, he mentioned like watching oil tankers getting sunk, and he signed oil tankers. So
Right. Yeah. No, I can imagine literally watching your life's work be just like thrown to the war effort. It's like, cool. Great.
Yeah. Yeah, wasn't happy about that. That said, I mean, he felt, I guess, some loyalty to Japan, or he said in interviews that he considered like dying by suicide if the country lost the war,
Wow.
and that he and his wife and their like infant son would all die if they lost.
Did he say if that was specifically out of like a pride for Japan thing, or if that was like a, we're doing such bad things, I'm worried about what might happen to us if we lose?
He didn't specify why. He just was so despondent about the war, I guess. Yeah, by the spring of 1945, he traveled to Hiroshima for a months-long business trip to work in the Mitsubishi shipyard. And around the same time, in Europe, Nazi Germany surrenders. But in the Pacific, it continues. So for the Allies, this becomes a question of how to end the war in the Pacific, how to get Japan to surrender, basically. And the answer they come up with after the Japanese reject terms of surrender in late July is to use this bomb, the atomic bomb, which, as anyone who has studied American history or seen Oppenheimer knows, it was developed during the Manhattan Project. And it's kind of crazy how quickly these things happened. The U.S. tested this nuclear device on July 16th, 1945. That's only a couple of weeks before it was used in Japan.
Yeah. Wow. I also didn't realize it was that close.
Very close. What's more is that they tested this device, then the Japanese reject these terms on July 26th. And then by that point, the U.S. is already sending like atomic bomb parts toward Japan.
Really expediting the process there.
Yeah. At this point, I mean, there's like lots of reasons why the atomic bombings were very controversial, but Japan was very weak by 1945. A lot of the cities had been destroyed. Tokyo destroyed, these
Right.
fire bombings among the worst of the war. Food shortages were rampant. The Japanese military was all but defeated. But to Harry Truman, the U.S. president, like it was a calculation of ending the war sooner, saving more lives. He decided it was worth it to use the bomb.
Yeah, drop the one, theoretically the first one, be like, look at how devastating this is. Please surrender.
Right.
Rather than continually firebombing and just committing this. Plus, I mean, like I know they were weakened at this point, but the Japanese military was mighty during the Second World War, especially considering the size of the island or the islands that make up Japan compared to like even, China. And then Japan was making major ground in China despite being
all throughout Asia.
I mean, vastly outnumbered. There's the absolute might of their military. So even a weakened Japan refusing to surrender is still like, oh, this is going to go on for quite a while.
Yeah, and Truman has said at least that he thought it could cost hundreds of thousands of more American lives. So, but to your point about using the bomb instead of like firebombing, they chose Hiroshima for reasons. They wanted to show the power of the bomb in the most like powerful way possible, and that meant bombing a city and not like a remote region or some uninhabited island or something. Hiroshima was large but compact, and so the bomb would destroy the city, and that's why it was chosen. And it had factories.
A lot scarier to destroy factories and city buildings rather than like wooden country houses.
Yeah, right. And people, they needed something like pretty devastating and fatal for it to be effective, or that was the logic for the Americans. So on August 6, 1945, Tsutomu Yamaguchi is making his way to the Mitsubishi shipyard for his final day of work before he's heading home to Nagasaki.
Wow. Oh, last day on the job. That's rough.
It was his last day before he was heading back. Yeah. He's walking around 8:15 a.m. and he notices a plane, which is the Enola Gay, flying overhead. He didn't think very much of it. Hiroshima was an important wartime industrial base and airplanes were common. I'm not really sure how easy it was to tell the difference between Japanese and American planes from a distance, and or if he didn't have much time. Yeah. He noticed anyway that the plane dropped an object attached to a parachute. And then, as he describes it, the whole sky turned blazing white, which he described as the lightning of a huge magnesium flare.
Wow.
Yeah. So the bomb, which was called Little Boy, was exploded with 15 kilotons of TNT. The blast traveled at 984 miles per hour. And the temperatures on the ground got up to 7,000 degrees Fahrenheit. So very powerful, very hot. The fireball spread out to 900 feet in diameter, and the mushroom cloud began to form. And within instants, tens of thousands of people were killed in Hiroshima. More than 2/3 of the city's structures were destroyed. I mean, clearly this was a huge, powerful blast.
I know we've talked about it before, but I at a certain point, a number gets so big you can't fathom it. I forget when it came up. Maybe during a History Happy Hour segment, we were talking about the heat of an oven or something, and I was like, "Oh yeah, 400 degrees. That's pretty hot. That's what you bake. That's what you bake a pizza at. 800 degrees, very hot. 7,000 degrees, just unfathomably hot. That's so warm.
Yeah, it's like hellfire.
Yeah, how hot is the sun?
Probably hotter.
Definitely hotter than that. I'm just curious for 27 million degrees.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, it's a little bit hotter than.
So I would say it's a good bit hotter, yeah.
Still, 7,000 is very hot. And Tsutomu Yamaguchi was less than 2 miles from where this bomb was dropped. Incredibly, he survives the blast. He had undergone naval air raid training, and so he knew to kind of throw himself into the nearest ditch and to cover his eyes and ears. As he recalled, though, a woman walking near him just completely vanished.
Wow.
After the blast. He, despite going into the ditch, the shockwave that followed the bomb threw him up into the air, and he woke up in a potato patch. He said later, "I didn't know what had happened. I think I fainted for a while. When I opened my eyes, everything was dark and I couldn't see much. It was like the start of a film at the cinema before the picture has begun, when the blank frames are just flashing up without any sound." It's hard to even imagine, because I think, when something happens and your brain doesn't understand it, it's just you try to fill in the blanks, but and no one had ever experienced anything like this. So.
Right. A lot happened very quickly there.
Yeah.
Very smart to instinctually just throw yourself in the near. Very convenient that there was a ditch to throw yourself into.
Right. He was a lucky guy in many ways.
Yeah. It reminds me of those old Cold War era informational videos they would play for school children about the duck and cover song
with the turtle.
Yeah, or just the one that's get under your desk if you see a nuke. It's I don't really know how much that's doing for us, but maybe a good bit.
I guess a little bit. Yeah, if you're covered at all, it probably helps. Assuming the building you're in isn't totally destroyed, but
right.
Yeah, he comes to. There's falling ash and debris blocking out the sun. His face and his forearms are badly burned, and he can see the mushroom cloud over the city. I'm not sure he would have understood what that meant at the time. Probably not. So he goes to the shipyard, and he meets 2 of his surviving colleagues, who are examples of other people who survived both bombings. They decide to make their way back to Nagasaki. They know there's incredibly a train still running. So the next day, they make their way to the train station, and it's it's horrific. They have to make their way through the city, which has been destroyed. It's full of bodies. At one point, they swim through a river full of dead bodies because the city's bridges are all destroyed or damaged. Yet they make it to the train. They make it to Nagasaki on the morning of August 8th. And he goes to the doctor, who doesn't even recognize him, even though they went to school together as kids, because his face is just badly burned and his forearms are burned, and he's just in bad shape,
covered in ash and debris and whatnot,
shell shocked. And so then after Hiroshima, the U.S. says that they had dropped the atomic bomb, but the Japanese were reluctant to believe that that's what had happened, because the Japanese program had lots of challenges, and they just didn't believe that the Americans could have done it.
Wow.
But they knew it was a new kind of bomb, but they didn't want to believe that it was an atomic bomb.
That's really interesting. Interesting that the U.S. was we did it, and they were like, no, I don't think so.
Right, yeah.
I don't think it's no, we're telling you we did.
I thought it was some kind of trick, or I don't know. They knew it was a new kind of weapon, but they didn't think they could have done that. They also thought even if the U.S. had dropped an atomic bomb, they couldn't have more. That must have been the only one. So there was a lot of sort of paralysis in the Japanese leadership following Hiroshima.
Right. Sort of well, that was they played the ace up their sleeve. Then that's all they have, and maybe we do keep the fight going then.
Yeah.
Because this is the worst it's going to be.
Debate, but
yeah, sure. To be the devil's advocate guy in that situation.
Right.
They can't drop a second one, so.
That's what they assumed, unfortunately.
Right.
But
yeah.
the U.S. did have more bombs. And in fact, the next bomb that they prepared to drop was even bigger than the bomb dropped at Hiroshima. It's called Fat Man. Another fact that I learned about this is that Nagasaki wasn't the first target. They had originally decided to bomb the city of Kokura, but hazy conditions on August 9th made that impossible. So they went to their plan B, which was Nagasaki, which is kind of incredible.
Yeah, didn't they also float Tokyo as a potential target at one point?
Yeah, I don't know if it's because Hiroshima was just... I know that Tokyo was pretty spread out, and Hiroshima was more compact, so that might have been a reason.
Okay, I mixed it up. Kyoto was initially on the list, but then the U.S. Secretary of War Henry Stimson said not to, because he had visited Kyoto before, and he recognized that it was like very culturally and historically significant because there were a lot of like ancient temples and a lot of history there, because it was the ancient capital of Japan. It had more than 2,000 Buddhist temples and Shinto shrines and 17 World Heritage sites. So he was like, we can't bomb that one.
That was maybe a nod to that was in Oppenheimer, where I'm not sure who the character was, but he goes, "Oh, we can't bomb Kyoto. I went there on my honeymoon."
Oh, it probably was that then.
Yeah. Well, in any case, for our guy, Tsutomu Yamaguchi, he's now in the city that's being targeted by the second bomb. On August 9th, he goes to work, which I think is just incredible.
Why?
Why? You just survived this incredible, terrible thing. But he goes to work and he tells his colleagues what happened to him in Hiroshima, but they don't believe him. Like one of his supervisors is telling him he's crazy. That couldn't have happened.
He's covered in burns.
I know, but it's like no one had ever seen this happen before.
It's just, such an unbelievable, unfathomable event, yeah.
I mean, there's like bombing and then there's like this kind of bombing, so...
Right. I mean, either way, hey, if someone shows up 2 days after being bombed of any kind of bomb,
right,
let them off. Let them have the day off at the very least.
I mean, there's probably like a lot of denial and like panic and whatnot, but so he's with his colleagues and he's talking to them, telling this story when at 11:02 the U.S. drops the second bomb, again called Fat Man. It's even more powerful than Little Boy. It explodes with a force of 21 kilotons of TNT, so huge. In Yamaguchi's office, this guy turns white, he drops to the ground, and the shockwave from the bomb shatters the windows. He later said, "Suddenly, the same white light filled the room. I thought the mushroom cloud had followed me from Hiroshima."
That's a scary thought.
It kind of had. He was once again less than 2 miles from the blast, but once again survived with fairly minimal injuries. The city's hills and his office's reinforced stairwell protected him from like the main force of the bomb. And then in a kind of a strange twist, he rushes home to find his wife and his infant son, and their house is gone. It's destroyed. But his wife and the baby weren't there. They had left because the wife was looking for burn ointment for him.
Wow.
So if he hadn't survived in Hiroshima, like, she would have died at least, she and the baby. But she survived. She survived by sheltering in a tunnel, and then she was soaked with black rain from all the fallout from the bomb. Yeah, but did survive.
Wow. That is like a true miracle.
I know. In the aftermath of the bombings, he has these burns. He also has radiation poisoning. So his hair is falling out. He's vomiting like nonstop. And then on August 15th, Japan agrees to surrender. He said, "I had no feeling about it. I was neither sorry nor glad. I was seriously ill with a fever, eating almost nothing, hardly even drinking. I thought that I was about to cross to the other side."
Whew.
So.
Yeah. Not funny, but interesting how his outlook about Japan's winning the war changed very dramatically, very quickly. From like, I will kill myself and my family if we lose, to I got other things going on.
Yeah, I think that definitely would change your perspective. A very close brush with death and not even sure that you are going to survive this.
Yeah. To him, he doesn't even know at this point that it was a second bomb. It's very possible that one just continued to spread over the course of a few days.
I'm sure there was a lot of just utter confusion. And I'm not really sure how much people understood radiation poisoning at the time.
Probably
I think
not
that
very
sort of
well, yeah.
Because I know after this, in like the 50s, there was a Japanese fisherman's boat that got caught in the fallout of a hydrogen bomb test. And after they got sick, then there was some sort of even people who weren't close to the bomb could get sick if they get this fallout.
Right. Yeah,
It's radioactive.
I mean, up until this point, they were like actively bombing the Nevada desert and just letting people watch
Yeah,
and
right.
like putting radium on everything to make it glow because that was fun. I mean, that was maybe like 20 years early,
That
but
was a bit
not
earlier,
that
yeah,
far
but
removed.
still. Yeah. Yeah, definitely there was not a total understanding of it. Today, the death toll of the atomic bombs is debated, sort of ranges from 110,000 to 210,000. And the first number is, from what I understand, more kind of like the immediate deaths. And the larger number is including the deaths of people who died from their injuries or from radiation in the days and weeks that followed. Pretty devastating, yeah.
Yeah.
He, for many, many years, did not speak about his experiences, which I completely understand. It's like just horrific, and maybe he didn't want to face that. After the war, he ended up actually working for U.S. forces as a translator. He became a teacher, and he eventually returned to work at Mitsubishi. He and his wife also had 2 more children, but their kids all had health problems, and his son ended up dying at 59 from cancer. In the 2000s, he starts to discuss what happened to him. He releases a memoir, a book of poems. He's in a documentary called Twice Survived about his story, and he became an advocate for nuclear disarmament. At one point, he said, "I can't understand why the world cannot understand the agony of the nuclear bombs. How can they keep developing these weapons?" Which obviously he has a unique perspective of this story. But he and his wife did live into old age. She lived to be 88. He lived to be 93, though they both died of cancer at the end of their lives. I guess a lucky guy in many ways, but also a very horrific experience to live through.
Yeah, lucky feels like the wrong word because it's like lucky that you lived, but it wasn't maybe necessarily. I mean, I guess he did end up having like a long, pretty decent life, though, it seems. So maybe it is lucky.
Yeah, and it sounds like he found like purpose in it to advocate against nuclear weapons and things like that. But it's kind of hard to imagine what that would have been like. I mean, to have experienced it once, let alone twice. But
I want to pull up a picture of him. Yeah, I mean, he looked fine. Like his hair came back. He wasn't like scarred or like, experience any malformations or anything.
Yeah, and 93 is a long time to live. Really crazy story.
Very much so.
I would like to go. I've never been to Japan, but I would like to go to Hiroshima and see the museum and memorials and everything.
Yeah, I would also very much like to go to Japan. So he seems to be the only person who's like officially recognized as a double survivor, but there are at least 2 other people that we mentioned in this story.
I think the number I saw was like 160 people are thought to have survived both bombings, but he's the only one who's recognized for it.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. And that may be because of how close he was to both blasts.
I was going to say the proximity probably helps.
Yeah, right. Because, the blast was so big, you could be over a large...
You could technically be in Hiroshima, but like well out of the blast zone.
He was so close, yeah.
That's crazy that there was a train running stuff. I mean, that makes sense. I guess you got to get people out of the city, but... Well,
maybe it was a train that connected to multiple places or something, so...
True.
But it is crazy, and just the timing of it all is so wild that he got back and like the next day... And that the U.S. wasn't even planning to bomb Nagasaki. That was like a day of decision they made because it was too hazy.
I think that's one of the craziest parts of the story for me is it's like, it was clearly a strategic choice, but it was like, well, we could take or leave our plans. Because you think like the other alternative is like, go with your original plan, but just wait a day.
Right. I think they wanted it. Well, I don't know. I speculate that they wanted it to be kind of like a 1-2 punch kind of.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think they had more bombs. Like they could have kept bombing if Japan had not surrendered.
I mean, yeah, once you figure out how to make it, I don't see what stops you from just doing more.
It's also crazy to think like these bombs obviously were very powerful, but the bombs that exist today, the bombs that were developed after are like so much more powerful.
That is a scary thought.
I think this might be a quote from Oppenheimer or maybe from like a different movie like Batman or something, but it's like so you have the power to do something, like does that mean you should do it? And some of these bombs are so you could easily destroy entire cities in the blink of an eye, and if not more than that. Seems bad to me.
Were you thinking of the Jurassic Park quote, You were so
Possibly.
concerned with whether or not you could, you didn't think whether or not you should, or I might be
I think that is
slightly paraphrasing that.
Yeah. This doesn't really. But the fishermen I mentioned. Did we talk about this before? Maybe I brought it up. Anyway, they got caught in this nuclear fallout. They went back to Japan. It was a huge story, an international incident because one died, and the U.S. was like, yeah, but it was probably like from some other health problem at first. But it was pretty clear it was because of this fallout. And from this story, this young screenwriter was working on a monster movie, and he decided to write Godzilla because he was inspired by what had happened to the fishermen.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, right. Because isn't in the movie, in the original Godzilla, is Godzilla not woken up by the bomb or by a bomb?
I haven't seen it. Doesn't he come out of the sea, though?
He does, yeah. But it was like they were testing the bombs in the ocean.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's in the original Godzilla. I know that's in some versions of the story. I don't know if that's in the original one, but I do remember like distinctly being like, oh yeah, the bomb happens and then Godzilla comes up and it's like, oh no, consequences.
Yeah, 'cause the fishermen, the U.S. was testing the hydrogen bomb when they got caught in the fallout, so that could be the connection. Yeah.
Apparently he was a prehistoric sea creature sleeping at the bottom of the ocean, awakened and agitated by the testing of a hydrogen bomb. And then in some people say that he was also mutated by the radiation, hence the ability to shoot laser beams out of his mouth.
The ship was called the Lucky Dragon. Yeah, so we have an article about that. If anyone's interested.
Wow.
Reading about them. But yeah, and I just got a news alert that nuclear subs are being moved around. So that's all. It's all good.
That's wow.
Everything's fine.
Unfortunately, really timely.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see if this episode makes it out.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, I remember when this guy died pretty recently.
Yeah. Well, 1916 to 2010 has.
It's kind of amazing to think that, World War II at this point now is almost a century ago, but it's also not like that long ago.
Yeah, next on the docket will be Virginia Hall, who I wrote about her a while ago for the site. She was a spy during World War II. Cool. This should be an interesting story. We love a good espionage tale.
Yeah, I do love a good espionage tale. Sticking with our World War II theme, I see.
Yeah, she reported on German troops while she was disguised as a French milkmaid.
But she was British?
No, an American.
Oh.
She was an American working under the UK's Special Operations Executive, and then the American Office of Strategic Services in France, but kind of just all over.
Wow, I can't wait to learn more. Yeah, I don't know anything about her.
Yeah, so that'll be an interesting little deep dive into a lesser known World War II story. And then
Ghost Ships, which I think is based on an audience suggestion. Someone suggested something about the Mary Celeste.
The Mary Celeste, yeah.
And we were like, you know what? There's a lot of ghost ships out there. Maybe we could talk about more of them. So yeah, that's coming up in a month, I think.
Yeah, thereabout.
We'll both take on a couple of ghost ships to discuss.
We can also, right off the bat, there's Flying Dutchman, Mary Celeste, and the Beit Chimo. Those are three of the most famous ones.
I think we have a bunch on the site too.
Yeah, there's ones from all over the world.
Yeah, love a good ghost ship, love a good spy. It's just out of order, but yeah, the ghost ship one is an audience suggestion, and we encourage such things. We've actually had a lot of episodes this year that came from suggestions. So
yeah, I think most of them.
Maybe so. Yeah, a great deal.
Yeah, it's very appreciated.
Some of these have come from Spotify comments, but you can also reach out directly either by calling us, leaving a voicemail. The number is 929-526-3029. Or you can email us at podcast@allthat'sinteresting.com.
Yeah. Be sure to check out the website as well, allthat'sinteresting.com, where we have hundreds upon hundreds of stories like this one and about completely different things. There's a lot going on. If you want to make sure you never miss any of that, you could sign up for our newsletter at allthat'sinteresting.com/sign up. That way, those stories will get pushed directly to your inbox. You never have to worry about fallen behind. You can also become a member at allthat'sinteresting.com/membership. And that gives you access to our monthly bonus show, History Happy Hour, as well as some other perks on the site, like an ad-free reading experience and a dark mode which I won't get into my thoughts on when to use dark mode.
Right. We have discussed that.
At night is the answer.
Not all the time, like I do.
Not all the
Oh,
time.
right. I say staring at a black screen. Yeah, and we'll be back in a few weeks with Virginia Hall, and then Ghost Ships, and then more stuff down the line.
Who knows? Yeah, I'm sure someone
And
will
who
come up with a good
knows?
idea.
Sure they will.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.